Hi everybody and welcome back to Ginger Boom Studios. I just want to give a quick reminder that Black Lives Matter, and if you can check the description box, please sign the petition for Elijah McClain. His petition is the one I want to center for today's video, and thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the video. Also, my dog Ginger and I say Happy Pride. There she is with my pride flag. The first book I read for Pride Month was If You Could Be Mine by Sarah Farizan. It is set in Iran, and I am drawing the main character, Sahar. Again, it's set in Iran, I think modern day Iran, and Sahar finds out her childhood love and best friend Nazreen is being married off. This causes Sahar to panic and decide that she wants a sex change surgery because trans people are treated differently by the government of Iran. This book deals with a lot of homophobia and transphobia in Iran. It's one of the things I really like about it is even though trans people are helped to transition by the government, it still explores the social stigma around it. Even though it is legal and recognized in Iran, it is still illegal. So I found that to be incredibly interesting. The book itself features homophobic violence and language as well as transphobic language. Sahar herself is transphobic at first until she spends more time with people trying to figure out how to do the process, and she examines kind of her own biases. I do like that a lot about the book. However, she's a teenager, and it is very, very crazy to me that she is totally willing to do this. I understand the panic when you're a teenager of young love, but still very, very interesting. No queer characters die, which is a great thing because I really dislike the bury your gays trope. So overall, I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It had a semi-sad ending. It was also sort of hopeful. Again, there was no burying your gays, which was great, but it's not my kind of book, to be honest. I'm very much over sad endings. It's not something I enjoy, so just keep that in mind. It's not as sad as I feel like most books would have taken it, but it's still something to consider. The other reason why I didn't rate it as highly is because I found Nazreen to be incredibly unlikable. Just one of the most unlikable characters I've ever read, and that's saying a lot. I've read a lot of books, but I do believe that the book intended her to be written that way because Sahar herself continuously describes Nazreen as being selfish and only caring about herself. I do think Nazreen's character development and actually learning why she is the way she is very interesting, but again, she is not a character that I like or that I wanted to spend any time on really within the book, even though she's supposed to be the love interest. It also made it very difficult to believe that Sahar would be willing to go as far as she went for Nazreen because she doesn't think super highly of her, it appears. It would be one thing if we were shown throughout the book that she is selfish, and it's another for Sahar to just kind of outright say it and just say, oh man, Nazreen's really selfish. So I feel like, more showing, less telling maybe, but I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because a lot of the other characters were also really great in the book. Her gay cousin, Ali, is a really interesting character because you get to see the gay underground of Iran and kind of like what that would look like. And then she also meets Parveen, who is a trans woman who is an amazing person. She is just so nice. I honestly thought the romance was going to turn over to Parveen, but it didn't, and that made me quite sad. But I would still highly recommend reading the book. Just please take into consideration that if you like happy endings, like really happy endings, and you're kind of tired of the sad gaze at the end ending, you're probably not going to like this book. It's a really good book, and it's definitely an interesting read if you're interested in reading about homophobia in another country. The author is Iranian, and I didn't actually intend for this to be necessarily so many different cultures. I'm very excited about it, but it was all books I just had laying around that I hadn't gotten around to reading. So it's very interesting to see it from another country's point of view, albeit it is very sad. And again, it's hard to read, but I think it could be a really good and interesting read if you're not as familiar with the culture and also how they treat gay and trans people in Iran or maybe even another country. It can be very eye-opening. Again, it's very sad. Obviously, it is representation for Muslims, and I think that's really cool, and I think we definitely need more books about this kind of thing. I'm going to actually see if she has any other books, because I did like this book quite a lot. It was more just, it was pretty sad. I'm hoping maybe she has one that's happier, but if not, that's okay. I don't mind reading sad books every now and again. I try not to rate sad books too lowly unless I genuinely think it's bad, because I feel like my preference for not liking sad endings might skew the results. You know, I don't want to be that person, but, you know, things happen. Anyways, I drew Sahar. I was very excited about it. I haven't drawn anyone in a hijab yet, so I hope you liked it. Please let me know in the comments, and excited to talk about the next book. The second book I read for Pride Month is A Line in the Dark by Melinda Lowe. I picked this book up a while ago because I like two of her other books, Ash, and then a prequel called Huntress. I think her books are very well written and very interesting, so I was very excited to pick this book up. Ash and Huntress are more like fairy tale and fantasy world-esque books, and A Line in the Dark is a thriller slash YA novel. It's a very interesting book, and I really enjoyed it, but I am drawing Jess Wong, who is the main character. She's an artist who is in love with her best friend Angie. They're in high school together. Tension starts to rise in the book when Angie starts dating Margot, a shoplifting student from a rival school. There's also a bunch of Margot's friends, and Jess keeps getting roped into going with Angie because Angie doesn't feel comfortable going alone. She doesn't know Margot's friends yet. Jess becomes more and more jealous, and it gets very interesting. She and Angie fall out a lot and have a lot of fights because of this, even though they don't really address it. And Angie isn't quite sure why Jess is so mad at her just for starting a relationship and dating. I actually really like the twist of this thriller. I won't give any spoilers, but I will say I didn't know Hans was going to be the main villain in Frozen, and I sat there and gasped when the twist was revealed in Frozen. So take that with a grain of salt. I was not expecting the ending, but most thriller fans would probably be able to spot it from a mile away. But I still really enjoyed it. I thought the suspense leading up to the event was very good and well written. I spent a lot of time guessing throughout the book what was going to happen. Like, I didn't really know where it was going, but I did feel uneasy, and I think the mood of the book is very good. And I thought she wrote teenagers very realistically. I find a lot of YA authors don't, so I want to commend her for that. I thought that was very interesting. So my rating for this book was 5 out of 5. It's very engaging, and there is no bury your gaze trope. It is also a fast read because it's very suspenseful. It's about 300 pages, I think, so it's not overwhelming, but it is a nice read. I will also say that while I really liked the book, my one critique of the book is when you start, you're right in one of the big action-y kind of scenes where you can tell things might take a turn for the worst. You know, you can tell that the event and the twist might happen soon, but then you jump into from the beginning of the story, and no offense to Melinda Lowe, I know this is a very common used trope, but I think that's why I hate it so much. It's very common, and also it just adds more confusion, and I feel if your thriller isn't strong enough without that, and the twist and the kind of stuff you're thinking about isn't strong enough on its own, then it's kind of your own problem. That's kind of a writing problem. I personally felt if you just took off the first part where it shows one of the more defining scenes in the book, it would have been even higher. It would have been like 5.5 stars or whatever. It was a really good book, but that is my one pet peeve. I still love the trope of we're best friends and we've been in love forever, and or at least one of them has been in love forever, and you know, it's kind of a big source of the tension. I highly enjoy that. That's a dynamic I like very much, and I don't think it's done poorly either. That being said, if you don't like that, you won't like that. You know, this one had a kind of bleak and sad ending. I won't go too much into it. Most thrillers do, but I wanted to mention that. You might say I would have rated it a lower star for that reason, but it's a thriller. I was kind of expecting for it to be like that, and it wasn't so hopeless or, you know, so sad that you feel like there's no hope for the characters. Well, for some of the characters. So it's a good ending. Still, since it was the second book I read this month, I was getting really tired of the sad endings. Oh my god. But still a very good book. I would 100% recommend it. Melinda Lowe is a great writer. And here's Jess Wong. The third book I read this month was Lumberjanes Volume 3 by Noelle Stevenson, Shannon Waters, Carolyn Nowak, Marta Layo. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm so sorry. But it is a comic book, and it's the third one in the series. You guys know how I feel about Noelle Stevenson already, but it's the shortest book I read this month, and I needed kind of a change of pace from the sad books. So Volume 3 is some ghost stories that the campers are telling, and also Molly and Mal, who I'm drawing, get lost in the woods when they're kind of taking a little picnic together. The series is about all of these girls who are camping together, and they start finding these really supernatural occurrences happening, and it just seems like it follows them no matter where they go. It's a really interesting and cute series. I like the art. I'm not quite sure what the main conflict of the series is yet, because I'm sure that there will be more explanation into the world and some of the other stuff, but for now I do like it, and we're getting to know the characters, which is very interesting. My two favorites are Molly and Mal. Molly and Mal have a romance going on kind of in the background, but they're so cute, honestly. So very cute, very sweet. I see a lot of Noelle's later work in She-Ra. I see some of the same tropes and the same kind of poses and hand-holding and stuff, and I really enjoy that. I enjoy the dynamic of Molly and Mal. Mal is definitely more of a worrywart and concerned about things, and I feel like Molly is, I'd say, kind of like an Adora, but not too much from She-Ra. She's definitely like, I'm gonna get stuff done, but also not quite the same level of anxiety as Adora, which is good for Molly, because holy hell. I wanna say I think there might be another queer romance in the group, but I feel it's too early to tell. And then there's one other character who is a little bit younger than the other girls, and there's also Jen, who is the person in charge of their cabin. I don't remember exactly what they call her in the series. I'm gonna have to reread them, but they're very short reads, so it's not impossible to reread them quickly. I have up to volume 6, I just haven't read them yet. No one dies, which is great. You guys all know by now in this video that I hate the bury your gays trope. The artwork is very nice, and I think what's interesting about this comic is that many different artists do the art depending on which volume you get, which makes for a very interesting atmosphere, because obviously comics aren't just the words, it's also the drawings and the mood and the atmosphere and kind of the style. So I find it very interesting that they can tell a very cohesive story that doesn't feel too interrupting while they have many different artists working on it. I will certainly commend them for that. As an artist, it's difficult sometimes to do something like that, but they did a really great job of it. I don't find it too distracting when the artists switch. I am always interested in who did what after, but the story is very easy to follow, very fun. I would say that this is probably appropriate for all ages. So far, don't quote me. I'm only on volume 3, but so far there's not too much violence or gore or any kind of sexual situation. So if you're really into comics, you should give this one a go. And I am probably going to keep making these videos where I do drawings of books I read that are queer each month since I've gotten back into reading. So I might do a couple other characters from this series, but after the characters I really like are gone, I'm probably going to drop off on that and maybe just do small updates, because it's very difficult to keep up with that sort of thing. Being said, so far reading 3 volumes of Lumberjanes, I think it's definitely worth a read, definitely worth your time. I find the creature design very interesting, very based in animals and that kind of stuff. So far, not the trope of Native American burial grounds or anything like that affecting why the woods are enchanted, so I have to give some special thanks for that because I always dislike when any kind of mystery type thing does that. I think Gravity Falls also did that quite well, but creatures are still interesting. Nothing seems too appropriative yet. They like to do that sometimes with camps and Native American people, so I'm very happy about that. The tone is very light and fun, which I think definitely goes with the art style, and I am very interested to see more of the world building and see more from this series. And if it seems like I'm going on a long time, it's because I maxed out how fast I could speed up the drawing of this. So sorry that I keep rambling about Lumberjanes, but I hope you guys are having a good day, that you're happy. I hope you pick up Lumberjanes. It's a super good series, and I know that I simped for Noelle Stevenson. I know, I'm guilty, you guys all know, but I still really love this. And I started reading them actually before She-Ra was finished, so I gave her quite a bit of money that I don't normally give to people, and gave her quite the leap of faith to be very happily surprised that a creator hadn't let me down, and continued to buy the series, as well as buying her book Nimona and her autobiography. So please take into consideration that I don't spend a lot of money on anything. And I've been giving this woman about $14.99 per volume every time I want another one. So please keep that in mind and seriously think about it. If you like comics and you want something easy and breezy to read, you should definitely read these, because they're quick and they're satisfying. And honestly, it's hard to find queer comics, I feel, so far for me, with a tone that's not super down. I have found other ones, but it's still not even easy in the year 2020, let me tell you. So here's my picture of Molly and Mal. The 4th book I read for Pride Month is On a Sunbeam, which is a graphic novel by Tilly Walden. It is set in a world that is only women and non-binary people, and it is centered mostly around space. It follows the main character. I'm not drawing the main character, I'm drawing Grace, who is my favorite character, but the main character is Mia, and it follows her through the present, where she and a crew of mostly women and then one non-binary person, Elliot, go and fix these old buildings out in space. It's a very interesting world to jump into. It also has a lot of flashbacks to Mia's romance back in school with a girl named Grace, who I'm drawing. And Grace had to leave school and go to this really interesting place called the Staircase, or maybe it's just the Stairs. Don't quote me. They shorten it to TS. It is such an interesting place that she's from. I was really interested, and I hadn't really heard quite a concept like this before, so I don't want to spoil it because I think that is one of the really interesting bits of this book is Grace's story. I wish that we had more of her, honestly. Mia's great, but Grace was just very interesting. I also really loved Elliot and Elliot's story. Elliot is also from the same place that Grace is, but they ended up leaving for a very sad and interesting reason. And it also made it so Elliot doesn't talk very much. It was very traumatizing, and I find that super interesting, and I thought it was done really well. Very cool. I also love the idea of a world. A lot of times they'll make like, oh, a world where it's just women, but then they'll pretend that non-binary people don't exist. So I don't usually know what the rules for that kind of world is, and it makes me uncomfortable sometimes. But this one, it was just so effortless that I didn't really question it. I really enjoyed it, and it also didn't announce itself as like, hey, there are no men. There were just no men. So it wasn't something that I had to think about too hard or worry about, and it was really refreshing actually to see a comic with absolutely no men. But overall, I rated it 5 out of 5 because it has a beautiful art style, a very interesting world, and Grace's story and Elliot's stories are extremely interesting and very captivating. I feel they steal the show other than the artwork itself. The artwork really helps reinforce the world building. Obviously, graphic novels are words and pictures, or they can just be pictures, but the times where she would just use drawings instead of words were very impactful, and they were done in a very smart and well thought out way. The whole book I found was very well thought out, very well planned. It was truly one of my favorite books that I've read so far. My wife had bought it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to read it, but she did talk me into reading it. And I am so grateful I did. Honestly, it was really a good book, and I know it just sounds like I'm singing all of these books' praises, but I honestly just got lucky this month. Normally for me, it does not go that way. I pick up several books that I'm not really a fan of, or for some reason or another, it's just not for me. You kind of get a grab bag when you're just trying to find representation sometimes, honestly, but I really lucked out. I got 4 amazing books for this month, and I'm thinking about turning this into a series, actually, where I talk about books that I read every month, and I draw the characters that I really liked from them, because I already started another book, and my goal for this year is to read 30 books, and I hadn't started until Pride Month, for the most part. I read a couple before that, but I'm only at 10 books. So if you guys would be interested in that, me become a partial booktuber, just kidding, I'm not a booktuber, but if you guys are interested in that, I would really love to know. This was super fun for me to do. It really kicked me out of my funk. I made TikToks for this for the first time in a long time, and it actually felt really fun and really good. So in the comments down below, let me know what you read for Pride Month. I'm super interested to know. Did you read these books? What did you think about them? It's totally fine if you have a different opinion than mine, but just let me know. It would be super cool to hear all you guys' opinions. And that's Grace, and we're at the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Bye!